Wendy, you ready to start?
Yeah, she will.
Oh. Yeah, look, Uncle Roland, let's start maybe with growing up. And we would like to know, what was it like growing up in Hester?
Yes.
You know, as boys in the family.
Belmont, you mean?
Yeah, in Belmont.
Well, this was rural, you know, way back, I'm talking about 70 years ago. We didn't have a lot of conveniences, we didn't have no air conditioning, didn't have all the sanitary facilities and all that. Lights, we only had a string hanging down in the room. Really, at the beginning, we didn't have electricity, we had oil lamps. They were real small.
Yeah.
And eventually we went on to electricity and so forth and so on. And we went to school, they had 4 big oak trees in the yard. Had a lot of place to play. We had chickens, cows, pigs. We had all that. And we always had something to do. If you went to school, you walked to school, it was about 300 feet from the house. No, 1, 2,
To the
and
old
3.
school there?
Me too.
We go to St. Mike.
How we doing?
They had a school in Hester? In Belmont?
Yeah, in Belmont.
I thought y'all
I
went to
remember
St.
Daddy saying
Michael.
that one time, but I never really asked a lot of
With
details.
Virginia.
Yeah.
Taught school over there. And I met Rita LeBlanc from Romeville. She used to come by the train. In the morning, she'd ride down on the train. In the afternoon, she'd take the train and go back home. Up until the 3rd grade. And when you promoted to the 4th grade, we had to go to Paulina. That was that big 2-story building they had in Paulina. You remember that white building?
Yeah.
We went there until we were in the 8th grade. And then when they built the high school in Lutcher, by 1931, 32, I went to Lutcher for high school for 9th grade. But we stayed in Paulina until the 8th grade. Then from Lutcher, we all went to Lutcher High School and graduated from there.
When you and Uncle Garland, my dad, Uncle Niece were children, the little bitty children, what did y'all do to have fun?
To have fun, we used to play marble under the oak trees. And they had vines that were growing on the oak trees. They used to call that blackjack vine. Climb that.
We know of them.
We play peg, take a peg and
Wooden pegs, huh?
wooden peg, pick that in the ground, and we'd spin tops.
Ah.
A game with that.
When I was a child, I remember Papa used to make us some little corn cob thing with nails and feathers. Did he do the same with y'all?
Yeah, the same thing with that.
Yeah.
And we played games like tin can, back the can.
Back the can.
Yeah.
But we had no swimming pool. We go swim in the river, and then you get the tail beat and you get back.
My mom didn't like that,
So y'all ran shrimp boxes too as children with Papa?
No, we never went to the river.
Never went to the river.
I'll be that way. I used to go raising the shrimp box.
Yeah.
Except when you snuck away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he take y'all fishing in the river? My mom didn't let y'all go
No.
fishing?
Y'all went fishing in the ponds?
No,
Okay.
very little
What
fishing.
kind of tricks did y'all play on each other? Or did y'all play tricks on each other?
No, we all had a job to do, and one would feed the chicken, the other would feed the hogs, the other would milk the cows. We had all those jobs to do. We had to cut wood. You know, summertime you had to cut wood and bring it in, and because we didn't have central heat, and we had stoves that would burn coal, or a fireplace, you could burn coal in the fireplace. I mean, to heat up the house. And when it was real cold, best thing you did at night was to get under the quilt. Keep warm.
Yeah. The daddy, and we never did sit down with Dad and ask him this, or we knew as an adult he had a pretty good sense of humor because he was always kid with us quite a bit. As a young boy, did Dad have a sense of humor?
Oh yeah, we had baseball in those days. We used to play convent, we had games with them, in Central. But it's not Little League like it is today. We had one ball, if that ball got lost, well, you had to hunt until you found the ball before you could
Like moving the sandlot.
That's right.
And we used to play right next to the house then, where that loop service station is. That's where the ballpark was.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there.
I'll be there.
So y'all had teams and y'all did play
Oh,
other,
yeah.
other
We
teams?
come to Granby,
Play
play
there.
Grammars and lots
Did y'all get any kind of allowance or anything as youngsters when you used to do your chores of milking cows and feeding the chickens and?
No, in those days it was, we were down to like,
Yeah.
Did you work?
a nickel could buy a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Used to go to the movie, like on the weekend, for about 20 cents. And they had the Auntee Lutcher Also, that was going to build another one in Gramercy. But that was the extent of our amusement.
Yeah.
We didn't have any TV. We finally got a Victrola. We had that Victrola for a long time.
Right.
Record player or whatever you call it. And it was a crank type,
Mm-hmm.
crank it up.
So she cranked that up and y'all would play
Listen
and
to records, you know.
listen to the music?
As
Hello?
children growing up,
That's Jenna.
did you and your brothers,
For our family.
Dad and and his brothers, did y'all get along well? Did y'all have your little minor fights and?
No, we never had any problem because
Hi.
you had Uncle John, there was
Here.
Pete and
How
them,
you doing? I'm sorry.
John S. and
Um,
Gene and them, they all, well, most of them live right, they live in that big house. But the only place I remember living.
And the big house was the one towards Hester,
Yeah.
up off the
It used to
ground.
be on high off the ground. And they had two families in there. Uncle John was living in there and Uncle Partner.
Okay.
Partner at one side and Uncle John at the other side. And Uncle Roger, well, he had a smaller house. That's Ellis's daddy. He had a little bitty wooden frame house that was built right next to that two-story house.
Yeah.
That's where he lived. Then Uncle Nelson, well, Uncle Nelson never lived there with us for a long time because he was working in Ponchatoula, working a bank with the family packing house company. And then Uncle Nelson left Ponchatoula, the job he had there, and he came to Hester, to Belmont. He lived with the Taunts there for a long time before he got married. And Uncle Nelson didn't get married until late. And then he ran the packing shed, Uncle Nelson. And our pastime or the amusement when we were small was working in the field, planting shallot, picking peppers, doing that. And when you got home from school, you had to go in the field and do something. You had a job to do. And we used to work on I remember working on the packing shed until 12 o'clock at night, packing shallot, while we were in school. You get back from school, you go to the packing shed. We all had a job there.
Did Mama and Papa, when y'all were even little and coming up through school and such, did they speak mostly French or did they speak half and half, French and English, or?
Well, my mother used to speak more French than Papa. Papa didn't speak too much French. And of course, when we started school, they beat you if you go to school and talk French.
Yeah.
You get punished.
We always heard that.
Yeah.
Punished.
Daddy used to say that.
Wasn't supposed to. Now they're trying to teach French. That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
But I remember in the days that, and Papa he used to like to go to, Alfred Luke had that store, you know, right next to where the school was. That was Marguerite's daddy. And the men used to go there on the weekend, like that Saturday night, and they gamble, you know, play a little poker or something. And my mom used to do some fussing. Sometimes she'd get up and go over there and get it.
I can see a little bit of Mama going get
Going
the
on.
Yeah, she'd go over there. She raised hell and
And he come
come
home.
home, yeah. And many battles with him there. It's not, he never drank or anything, but he used to like to play cards. That was a pastime for him.
Okay, you talked about the school in Belmont, which none of us knew it was there. So y'all went up to what grade there?
Grade 3.
Grade
1,
3?
2, and 3.
And then y'all went to,
Then we caught a bus. At that time, Mr. Bowman used to come there. He'd pick us up and he'd drop us off at Paulina.
Paulina School. Okay. And y'all went to there up until what?
8th grade. We finished
grade.
8th grade in Paulina.
And then Lutcher?
Lutcher was 9 to 12. 9 to 11 when we
Okay.
go. At that time, 8 to 11 was high school. But they had 8th grade in Paulina. before the Lutcher School was built.
How was Lutcher High School different then from when you were superintendent?
Well, the building was the same.
The Lutcher High School?
Lutcher High School building didn't get renovated. If I recall correctly, we didn't have air conditioning. They had 3 stories, a lot of windows. And in 1974, they renovated Lutcher High School. They put air conditioning in the building.
What about the teachings, the education curriculum?
Well, when we first went to Lutcher High School, it was all, the blacks didn't get to Lutcher High School until 1967, they started integration. But the high school was the last grades to be integrated. I believe that was integrated around 1969. We had to integrate all grades.
Yeah.
We started off with the
Elementary.
first grade, first year. It started at midterm even. I believe only 7 blacks went to the white schools. That was a freedom of choice thing, so you had to fill out the paper for that. And then the next year, when they had 2 more grades that had to volunteer or fill out a freedom of choice if they wanted to go to a white school. But then in 1969, the judge ordered that all grades be in it. So that's where we went to. We sent the boys to the Cypress Grove School, and we kept the girls at the high school. We had 7 to 12. The boys went to the black high school. It was white and black mixed, the same. And the girls, 7 to 12, went to Lutcher High School. They stayed that way until 1974.
Yeah. And
then the judge ordered us to, we couldn't separate them no more. We had to put everybody together. In 74, when they put air conditioning in the high school, that's when we had all the schools had air conditioning then, that year, I remember that. And even the elementary schools. But the quality of teaching, I mean, went down when you put all these people together. I mean, there's no way that you could survive, I mean, because you put all these poor black kids, I mean, they were living in worse conditions than we were living.
Yeah.
Of course, when we came up, we were living in almost the same condition that they were living in. When we were little kids, you know, in the first, second, and third grade. We didn't have anything either. But at times, then the war came on, and then things got better, and these plants were built. Because I remember, like your dad and them, when they were on the farm, but then when Pan Am opened, they went to work at Pan Am, industrial hand. My niece and your dad. And that's where they were working. And then 1954, when Pan Am closed, that's when Kaiser came up. So all those people that were working at Pan Am, they all got jobs at Kaiser, because Kaiser was looking for some people to work that had experience in the plant. So that helped that out.
Yeah. And when y'all were coming up, did y'all have a choice of what y'all wanted of participating in extracurricular activities in high school? And did y'all have a choice of subjects as well?
Oh yeah, you could take a business course, or you could take agriculture, you had industrial arts. And as far as the athletics, well, we didn't participate in athletics, because you had to get back home and do some work on the farm.
Yeah.
See, farming was that was our main source of revenues. I mean, you had to make your daddy, Papa and your daddy, and we had to work, we had to help them. They couldn't hire anybody to do the work, they had to do the work. We had to do the work ourselves.
So they had to make boys.
Because we bought that land, I never forget that, we bought that land at Hester around 1930, when Papa and your dad and Uncle John and all, and we bought that land at Hester, they bought 300 acres then. That was $125 an acre when they bought that.
When he bought Hester Plantation
Yeah,
area.
bought that plantation. And it looked like there was a lot of money at that time, because there was money, but they had a good market for the vegetables at that time.
Yeah.
Whatever you would make, I mean, you could sell.
Is that when they were marketing also?
And then we had the army camps, you know, Uncle Nelson had that, we were selling stuff at the army camps, the trucks were hauling at the Alexandria, Leesville, and Arkansas. And poor Slim Keller, he got killed on the run over, a truck ran over him. And he was going to the market, right there back up, premise to that. He was getting on the airline going to, but it was a big family and they all lived together and worked together then.
Going back to college, you and Dad had went to Spencer Business College. I believe you had said he went to college even
The
before.
first year I didn't go to school, man. 1930. I finished in high school in 38. Then I worked in the field for a year. And then fall of 1939, I started at LSU. But your dad had gone to a trade school, built in Baton Rouge.
Spencer's.
Yeah.
Same
I
place
thought-
same place I went.
I thought you told me he went to a trade school, then he went to a business
He
college.
might have gone to a business school after, but he went to trade school first.
For machinery, you said, for machinists.
Yeah, he was doing that.
And then he went
Yeah.
Then he went to
But
business
I remember he had
college.
made a little jack screw.
Mm-hmm.
He had cut that out on the leg over there.
So we never knew that. And you told me that when I had you on the phone the other day, I was shocked. And then you told me you went to business college after. When y'all went to college, when you went to LSU, when he went to the trade school and to business college, did y'all have to pay for that on your own?
Well, in those days, it didn't cost you about $250. You get a little job at school. I was working on a farm at LSU,
Yeah.
so you get $15 a month. I used to get a meal ticket for $15. You could eat 3 meals a day. $15 a month.
So y'all kind of got little jobs
Yeah,
to
got
make
little
y'all
jobs
through
at school.
school.
But it wasn't as big as it is now. You know, I
Right.
mean, those days.
Mm-hmm.
And things were economical. I mean, a dollar could do a lot of things in those
Yeah.
days. I would say it's not until after the war that things really got out of hand, you know, money-wise.
Sort of.
And before we get to the war years, and we kind of skip the teen years, when y'all were going out in high school and such, and I guess in college too, still teenagers somewhat, did y'all go on dates? You know,
Yeah.
did y'all go on dates together?
That's right. They go together sometimes. I mean, your daddy and Uncle Niece and them, we used to meet. They didn't have many barrooms those days. I mean, we couldn't go to no barroom.
Yeah.
There was
More
no
than
such
like
thing. They didn't have a barrooms, didn't participate with young kids in those days.
So how did y'all meet your wives? I mean, y'all met them
They
at
had
dances?
dances at the gym.
Yeah.
They had those gym dances. And that was before the new gym. That was when the old gym was standing there. The school would have dances. And I remember the building in the old music building was at Lutcher High School. That's before they had the new
Yeah.
school. They had an old wooden building there, the first one. That was the music building.
Yeah, I remember.
So the
I
dances were
And
there?
I remember.
they had dances in that building.
Now Mom always told me that she met, Daddy came back to get her when she was working at Airline Motors. That's where Mom and Dad met.
But a lot of people used to go there.
Yeah.
That was a common place, Airline Motors in those days, in the class.
How did you meet Auntee? At the dance?
At school.
At school.
Yeah.
Mama was working at Sycamore Inn.
Sycamore Inn.
That's
When he was
where
at
she met
Sycamore,
Dad.
yeah.
Yeah.
I met Sycamore.
Back here.
And that's where
Yeah, I
Daddy
met
met Mom.
That's when she met,
Yeah.
when he was trucking.
Well, a lot of the girls used to work there at
Yeah.
Sycamore Inn or whatever restaurant. Blakely had a restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people used to work there. Of course, in those days, if you made 50 cents an hour, you're doing good. I worked in the field that year that I didn't go to school. It was paying me 75 cents a day. That's what got paid. Working on the farm.
Okay, and
75 cents a day.
I know working on a
Then
farm.
you wait from daylight to dark.
Yeah. And
Saturday and Sundays too.
And I imagine working on a farm is where you and Dad, Uncle Niece and Uncle Garland learned how to drive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But
What
we had trucks and tractors, you know, we had to.
How old were y'all when y'all first started driving the tractors?
Oh, Lord, I was driving tractors at about the age of 10, 12, just like little kids today.
Yeah. Right.
That's the first thing they want to do is get on a tractor.
Yeah, Daddy had Stevie going at 5.
Trucks. Well, anybody that live on the farm, they have to learn how to drive in the field, you know, where you go pick up your
Yeah,
crops.
yeah.
When you were teenagers, besides working on a farm, when you got to your high school years, did y'all have any other money y'all earned, like any outside jobs? You said the women went and get jobs at Sycamore Inn, you know, in those days. Where,
No, we'd work on the farm, they would give us
And
little money,
by
every
any-
week we'd have, they would give you an allowance.
Oh, okay.
Go to
When you
the
got to your
movies.
teenage
Yeah.
years, that's how y'all earned your
Correct.
little allowances, working on a farm. That must be where Daddy got the idea of putting our farm money in a cigar box. And at the end of the summer, he would give us our money.
I mean, it wasn't that much money, you know, but it was
Right.
at least you could buy
Yeah.
a hamburger,
Same way
hot
for
dog,
us.
whatever.
Yeah. That's what he did with us.
I'll
He
go to
would-
Rich's.
Yeah,
There's a snowball.
snowball stand. But it was a lot of fun in those days, I mean. That's why we didn't have any problem with dope, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody was happy and go lucky.
Mhm.
Now it looks like that they got a smoke or they got the
No drug problems,
drug
no.
problems.
Kids don't have as much.
We didn't know what
to
that
do.
was when we were in high school. We didn't know what that was.
What about hobbies as youngsters? Did y'all have any hobbies?
Most of our hobbies were working. That's where
So
we
Dad,
spent our time.
so Dad didn't have a hobby neither then?
No, not.
Okay.
Where did you and Daddy develop your hobby or love for cooking?
Well, I did cooking when I was in the service. Went to service in 44. Yeah, I was in the military at LSU, and I got a commission there. And then from there, I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, stayed there a while, and I went to Camp Chaffee, Arkansas. So when I was overseas, they put me in charge of a lunchroom. I was a lunchroom officer.
Head cook.
Head cook for a big replacement center. We used to feed 3,000 people a meal.
So that's where you got that, and then Daddy kind of just started cooking with you?
Your daddy must have, maybe in the service, he might have had something to do with, because every company used to have a mess hall
Mhm.
when you were in the service, you know.
Mhm.
And everybody had to serve on KP, they had to peel potatoes, do something, clean up, you know, have to clean the mess hall. They used to call it a mess hall in those days.
Yeah.
And some people, well, a lot of the French people, they work in those mess halls, but it's like, got a job than doing some other things, you know. So I guess your daddy, maybe he worked in the mess hall while he was in service.
You mentioned that all four brothers did go in the service, huh?
Yeah, all four at one time.
Because I never heard of Uncle Garland going in the service.
Yeah, he
I
was in the
didn't know.
service. All four of us were in the service at one time.
At one
Now,
time.
Dad had told me that
Right.
at
That
one,
had to be wrong.
at one point,
Couldn't have to
Mama,
say no
Papa
problem.
had to, they were running a truck farm for the government during World War II, and that they had to write letters to get
Yeah.
one of y'all come back. Because all four of y'all, Mama had all four of y'all in the service.
Yeah.
So who came back?
Who came back when they wrote the letters to say come back?
I don't believe none of them came back. Now, Slim didn't go in the service. That was Slim. But none of ours came back.
Okay.
Okay, and when Daddy got injured, then he came back and did some farming
Yeah.
for the government with Papa
Yeah.
and Uncle Nelson. The truck farm.
I didn't know Daddy got injured.
I didn't know Dad got injured either.
Daddy got injured, his hand got busted.
Yeah.
Shrapnel?
No, not shrapnel,
No,
equipment.
Equipment, yes.
So then he got released after that and came and do some truck farming for the government
Yeah,
with Uncle Nelson.
when you get a deferment, you see.
Right.
They didn't hardly have anybody left.
Because Ricky was saying last night, he thought all four of y'all were in the service, and then the government started saying, we don't have enough vegetables for our military bases. So,
But I don't believe any of ours got discharged
really?
because of that. Now, maybe your daddy, maybe they let him come home for a certain amount of time, you know.
Yeah. Well, he had told me Papa had to write a letter, so you
Yeah.
hadn't heard that,
No,
They had
I
to-
don't remember that.
that if that
That's what
helped
Ricky
out.
thought too.
That's what Daddy had told me, yeah.
Hmm.
So then you did your time in the war,
Yeah, I
and
stayed until 1946. I came back home in June of 46.
when did your other brothers get to come home?
Well, I believe they were home before me, I believe, your daddy. I think he came home and,
Yeah, he told me he came home before you.
Yeah, but he didn't come home that much before because I
No.
was born in 45 and he was not home when I was born. And I was born in
You weren't
November
home.
of 45.
and Uncle
And
Niece didn't
I
come
was
home
several
that
months
much
old
earlier
before
either.
Daddy saw me.
And Uncle Garland came in, he got discharged after me, I believe.
After you. So y'all all
He was
just
at Camp
staggered when y'all
Shepherd,
came
Mississippi.
home.
So you all in different places, huh?
Oh yeah, I was in Europe and your daddy and Uncle Niece were in the Pacific. Uncle Garland didn't go overseas and he was in the United States somewhere.
Yeah.
He didn't get
Okay.
shipped over.
But they purposely didn't send y'all to the same place.
Oh no.
The military made sure they didn't send
After
you to
Sullivan
brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we didn't go
So
to
then
the
they
same
divided
place.
up.
Sullivan, Ryan Sullivan? With Sullivan
No,
Brothers.
the Sullivan brothers were all four in the same boat in the Pacific.
Oh.
That
That's
was
what
what the movie was based on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Daddy told me when he got injured there, he got injured on equipment. His primary job was on Iwo Jima that they had to clean up the trenches. Did he ever talk to you about any of that? Had he ever shown you that war book we found?
No.
See, when we were growing up, he hid that.
He showed it to the boys.
To the boys,
Yeah.
and he hid it from the girls. And then when we accidentally found it, he was upset because he said he had to clean up a lot of bodies.
Oh yeah.
And that it was trying, he didn't want us to see that. And then he talked about it later when, older years, when he was hitting his late 60s and 70s, then he started talking about it. That's when he also talked about his injury and how he was losing the use of his hand and they had to exercise it and put rubber bands on. He didn't ever talk to you about any of that?
Well, the war is hell, I'll tell you that. Bullets don't know who's who. You just,
So when y'all came back all from the service, y'all just preferred not to talk about it among yourselves?
nobody talk about them.
Didn't tell Mama nothing much
No,
either?
I ain't never
Never told Mama?
told them.
What about your dad? You ever talk to your dad about that?
I'll be down.
You know, it look like that's human nature.
Yeah.
Right,
It's
you
a lot.
protect,
People
It's a
don't
lot.
wanna
right, you want to protect
hear
yourself and
stories
others.
about that. Because there's so much misery that you have to go through.
Mhm.
That You were living out in the fields,
Mhm, mhm.
cold, rain, snow, or whatever it was. You were there. You slept in your sleeping bag. But that's the way it was. We had to do it. We knew it was for the benefit of the American people. So, I don't know. Today, I don't know if you could ever muster that many people to fight.
I believe that.
I believe that. I do.
I do too.
Yeah.
Because that sense
You know,
of
we had
patriotism is
millions
not
of
there.
people.
Right,
Say when the war started in 1940.
there was more patriotism then.
When they started going, they got volunteers. People volunteered to go into service then. And you didn't have all that drug stuff like they have today. Or they want freedom, privacy, and all that humbug like they want now.
Conscientious
They
objectives.
stand up and they want to picket and so forth and so on. I didn't know nothing about that. Well, you had a few conscientious objectives. They played those up a little bit, in the papers. But we didn't have TV, wasn't too much either.
Mhm.
But if you'd had TV today, if we'd have had that during World War II, they probably would have been on the front line shooting the pictures too. Just like they did in Desert Storm and so forth.
Right.
But they didn't have all those facilities back in the
Right.
40s. They didn't have all that technology then, where they could do that.
Yeah.
But now that TV people get that before the Americans land. That's what they did in Desert Storm. They were on the beach before the troops get there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's good or bad, I don't know.
Well, Uncle Roland, after y'all all came back and got married and started your lives, did y'all meet back at Mama and Papa's house a lot?
Oh yeah, I used to go down there on a weekend.
With y'all wives and all the
Yeah.
kids?
Oh yeah.
So when y'all first started having
We
y'all
all got
families?
married. I got married in the service, and I guess your daddy and niece got married over there in Texas.
So then when y'all all
Uncle
came,
Garland, I don't remember when Uncle Garland got married. Can't recall. He must have been in the service though when he got married. I would assume.
Yeah.
Can't recall right now.
Oh,
We always got together, and then I remember, maybe you people recall, we had when my mom and papa celebrated there. anniversary.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
To
at the
50th.
old grammar school.
Oh, underneath at the old
Yeah.
grammar school.
Mhm.
Their 50th wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
That was a
Yeah.
big celebration.
We had a film of
Really.
that.
Y'all had a film?
Yeah, we had a movie of
Oh,
that
at video.
video.
You got a copy of that?
No, it's not a video, it's a,
So, a real
Yeah.
film?
Real.
Real.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
VA.
And you have that
we
real
got that
film?
somewhere here.
Oh, okay.
I'll be
Not
glad.
that-
I remember that, and I was little. Met all kind of cousins, never knew I had.
Right. That was a really nice
That's a
celebration.
Y'all did a good
Really
job
nice.
for their 50th.
I never knew what it was for.
It was.
I remember going over there.
Yeah,
remember
y'all
it
was
being
so small,
50.
you see.
Right,
I mean,
y'all
that was,
did.
that's years ago.
Yeah, Vickie, I had Stevie and Vickie born at that time.
Now, I have another question.
It was a nice.
Speaking of Mama Ponte 50th wedding anniversary, did she ever talk to y'all about when she lost her daughter?
Yeah. I
She
knew
was
that.
older than y'all, between you and,
She was right before me. But in those days, you remember you had coal oil in little bitty cans. You had to put coal oil in your coal oil lamp. And some of the stoves would use coal oil. And that little girl crawled on the floor. And she, that coal oil, the cap was off on that coal oil can. And she swallowed some of that coal oil. And she smothered that. In those days, we didn't have hospitals and doctors like we have now. And she suffocated right there. She was
How old was she?
about a year old, was crawling.
so you wasn't born yet, but Mama told y'all about that.
Yeah.
Diana.
That's right.
It was before y'all were in the service or after y'all were in the service? Y'all still were all on the truck farm even after service, right?
Yeah.
And then y'all would go to the French market with Papa or for Papa before
Well,
or
you-
after the service?
But Papa never went to the French market here. The one they used to go to the French market was the younger one.
Okay.
Okay.
You know, the kids would go to the French market, like Slim. He was famous for that. He didn't go to service here.
Okay, so he's the guy who went back and
Yeah.
forth.
He went back and forth. And Papa never went to the market. He used to go on the road and buy shallots, though. He used to go to Chack Bay and Thibodeau and all that. Or they'd go to Angola, Baton Rouge, or south of Baton Rouge. And they'd quote shallots and bring them home and get them clean and pack all that.
Yeah.
I can remember the days of going to Moorville in the summertime to get shallot seed. Used to haul shallot seed up in Nelson. They would sell that to the other farmers so they would have seeds to plant next year.
Is that the way when we used to go and we used to do these big couchon delays where they roast the pig? Is that how we got to know these people in Moorville and get to do that?
Yeah. So-
We used because of the shallot?
Yeah, they had a pack shed in Moorville. We had pack shallot.
Because I remember those days of going there every year
Under the
to
big
the
oak
big oak
trees.
trees and roast
Yeah.
that pig.
They used to swing on the branches of the big oak trees.
When I meet today from Moorville people, I tell them about our stories of young
Moorville,
people.
yeah.
Moorville.
Yeah.
That's right around Coulon's hometown then.
Yeah.
We wasn't born yet. That was.
No, that was
We were
when we
little.
were little.
Yeah, we were little.
Well, they used to have these big celebrations in Belmont Park too. Seemed like I can remember. Man, they had the playground stuff. They had daily email and then we even invited.
We had family picnics.
It was family
Yeah.
picnic.
Yeah.
That was on
They
the
had
old
developed
land.
that park. See,
That
that
was-
land, I don't know who that land really belonged to. It used to belong to a Roussel fella at one time. And then there was a big house there that the river took.
Yeah.
A
Plantation.
plantation.
Yeah, big home.
Belmont Plantation.
But then, by the levee being moved, I don't know how many times, then the river took that house. And that Roussel lady, those people were living in New Orleans last I heard, some of the relatives anyway. And she was a school teacher, that Roussel lady.
And that, they had a house right there where that park was at. Not the
Yeah.
big house, but what we knew as the Boy Scout house. That was my mom and Papa's house.
Yeah, that Brignac,
That's what they brought up as kids.
you mean, where that Belmont Park
Where that
is?
park became.
They had a house, that Brignac man, old man Charlie Brignac, he used to walk the pipeline all the time, him. And his boys, well, one of his daughters married Freddie Noble. What was her name again now? Freddie Noble, he died not too long ago. But, and then the boy was named, he was the Charlie Brainiac. The old man was Charlie Senior, the boy was Charlie Junior. But he worked for a gas company in Pullman.
That crevasse that's in Belmont right now,
Yeah.
y'all house used
I
to be
don't
right
remember.
by that. That wasn't there when y'all was young, huh?
No, I don't guess.
That happened
I don't
another time
remember
for a
that.
flood with the
But
river.
I can remember Papa and them, that was about 1927. They had to walk that levee at night, so many hours. Everybody was on the ship,
To watch for leaks,
watch for leaks.
because it had broken there before.
Yeah, it broke, look for it up. Didn't have no animals on the levee, horses, cows, nothing like that. And everybody had a shift to walk, so many hours at night. That the river used to come, and that was even before the spillway was built. See, after they built the spillway, well, we didn't have too many problems with that.
Yeah.
That they could open the spillway, let the water go, relieve some of the pressure. But I don't remember that highway, but I remember Papa telling me that when that crevasse broke, they didn't have no water on the front, along the highway, out of left. But the water was up to the treetops.
In the
swamp,
back?
In the fields.
So it drained towards the
So
fields.
It's about 17 feet difference from the river road to the
Going down.
swamp.
Yeah.
So the crevasse was made by the river eating it out, or by them digging it out
The
to
levee
bring,
broke, yeah.
it broke
No,
like
it
that,
ate away.
and ate that away.
Yeah, ate all that away.
Yeah.
And they never did refill that. See, that still got water in it, and it washed the railroad
And that's
track
where
away
that
and
house-
everything. That's why nobody ever built back in there. Belmont lumber, they didn't have that in those days.
Yeah.
Now the
And
Indian
then
mound,
You had that at Romeville too, you had a crevasse.
Right.
Right.
Another one. Those things were, they had a lot of crevasse in those early days.
the Indian mound. When
Indian
Timmy and them were young, they used
Yeah.
to go to the Indian mound.
Used to go dig there.
Y'all used to go dig there? Mama let y'all go dig
They
there?
didn't go there, daytime, yeah. But people used to come there at night and dig in there. I remember LSU sent some people at it digging there. But I don't think they really ever found anything.
No, old potteries and stuff, big pieces.
They found a couple of like arrowhead
Yeah.
stuff and stuff like that.
But they claimed they had two of them, they got a big one and they had a small one.
No, the truck farm, all the land in Hester. How did that truck farm dissolve, and how was the dividing of that land? How did that dividing of the land take place?
They divided that, it wasn't divided at the beginning. It was divided, I would say, when the vegetable thing was going, depleting, it was getting,
On his way out.
they had no sales for themselves. So what they did, they petitioned the land. And everybody had it was designed where everybody would have a certain amount of acres. Remember, you look at the map, front, they give everybody a piece for their house. Then your land, maybe your farmland was maybe way on the side somewhere. But you had another piece over there that would correspond to what you had in the back. Because where Papa and Mama lived there, they bought that from Uncle Nelson. That wasn't their land.
Their brick home, when they built
Yeah,
that
they
brick
built
home.
that brick home.
They bought that from Uncle
Uncle
Nelson.
Nelson sold them that lot there, right next to where Marguerite's at. Sold them that. Boy, he didn't want to go live way over there. He wanted to live. Partner had built his house there where he was, and
Nelson had built
Nelson was
his.
living in that old house then, the original house they had on Hester there. And then Uncle John, Slim built his house, and Ernest and, your daddy and Garland, they were living in that double house there, where your daddy now living. Uncle Garland had half of that house, and your mom and dad had half.
But that was Nelson's.
Uncle Nelson's land
And
too,
Papa bought that from Nelson too?
where they live.
Well, Papa was living, yeah.
No,
Our house.
Daddy and themselves. That was Uncle
No.
Nelson's land they bought? No?
That was land that was given to Papa.
Oh,
had that
that was,
land.
oh, okay.
That was one of his strips further down.
Because I had a little piece where Uncle Niece was.
Most modern houses in the area at that time, huh?
Yeah.
There wasn't too many brick houses at that time.
Well, you might have had Partner's house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Partner's house is the same.
That
Yeah.
was the same kind of brick.
Yeah.
Brick
Right.
heap, whatever you call that.
So Partner and Papa were probably the first brick houses in Hester, Belmont.
Correct.
So how did Nelson get the majority of the land?
I don't believe he got the majority of the land. The acreage ought to be the same. If you go acreage wise.
Because I thought in back of my dad and Uncle Niece's house, all the way up to Partner's Lane, all the way to the back was for Nelson now. Past Hester Lane, where the quarters was, and then from the quarter lane, backside the oak tree, then it was Shaquille and them, or Roger and
I
them.
never really looked at the map. I divided, but I know it's all the Jarrell Wood, the one that petitioned it
Okay.
in those days.
Okay. So maybe the acreage is the same, I didn't,
Yeah, it's all the same.
because Nelson,
Now Nelson had that road down the middle.
right.
Where the quarters were at.
Yeah, the quarter was. So he might have had a little bit more there because of that, but I don't believe some of the people didn't want the quarters, but he said, well, I'm gonna take the quarter.
And then John
They had a lot of
his
black
and-
people living there.
Yeah.
At one time, they had about 20 houses down there.
Right, yeah, I remember
Right.
that. I remember.
And those, they became sharecroppers.
No,
No?
they
Some of them
they
leased,
used to
so they
work on
just
a
worked.
plantation. See, that's when sugar cane time was. But then, when they had the vegetable farm, well, a lot of them kept working on the vegetable farm. Some had jobs in other little places, so they worked for other people. But we used to bring shallots to them. And they'd go pull the shallots in the field, they'd bring shallots there at every house.
Yeah.
And they would clean that at night. Next morning you pass, then you pick up the
You
shallot
pick it
and bring it to the shed.
I got another question. If you ride down the quarter lane or Hester Lane,
Yeah.
and you would draw a straight line to the river, they had bricks, a brick foundation, brick walls was down in a river. And as kids, we used to pick those bricks up, but I never knew what that brick building was.
Hester
Right there where
Plantation.
Nelson Roussel was living on the side of Dad, you draw a straight line right back of the levee, right on the Mississippi River, there was brick.
Yeah. I don't remember that.
That wasn't part of, I remember asking Daddy what was the brick archway one time when he went raise the shrimp box. And he brought us to play. Told us couldn't get in the water, but we could sit on a clay mound. And they had a brick archway, archway. And he told me it was the original Hester Plantation home that had gotten washed away with the river.
So that might have been
James
Hester Plantation.
and
Moved the
that,
levee and
Fabric,
Right.
fabric.
because in the olden days, a lot of the foundations were made out of brick. A lot of these old barns and all that.
So that was the Hester Plantation.
Yeah.
they got washed away with the
I don't
river.
remember having a sugar house down in Hester. But at one of them, they had a big sugar house. Now, I remember having, at Hester, they had barns for horses and all that. And mules, they used to have mules in those days. You had to have buildings for those mules. But that was, it originally belonged to Colonial Sugars at one time. And then they had a world of land along the river, Colonial Sugars.
Right.
Even at Burnside, they had land, in Ascension Parish, they had land.
Now, we have heard from some of Daddy's co-workers how at work he used to always be the joker, always telling jokes and stuff. In y'all adult life, after y'all both were working, you were superintendent, Daddy was at Kaiser, y'all get together for the Lions Club and all that and cook.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Was he always playing jokes and sense of humor?
Yeah. Sense of humor. It's all fun, Yeah, it's always, now, Uncle Nee said he didn't take part in too many of those things, clubs and all that. He more or less was himself.
Yeah.
Now, Uncle Garland used to go to all those club meetings too. But,
Gall used to like sports more so.
yeah, like baseball and all
Baseball.
that. But Uncle Nee, he never did participate in those clubs or anything else.
Did that make you and Daddy closer, being when y'all would do all that and do it
We
together.
used to work together a lot, seeing cooking and fairs and so forth and so on. But you got to have that in you to want to do that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right.
Not everybody
a
likes to
natural
cook.
part.
Right. That's right.
And you have to be away from your home family.
Mhm.
You go spend weekend there, 2-3 days.
One of the best I heard, speaking of jokes, is with Daddy pulling on people at work. He got mad at the crew for something. He was in a control room. He was a foreman. And he had these floats round and had a screw type stem. So he got a bunch of, what do you call them, little rods, right? The fizzlers, what do you call them?
Sparkles?
Sparkles.
Oh.
Taped them all up, and he taped it in that hole of that ball. And then one day he just ran in the control room. He said, listen, I'm gonna tell all you son of a gun right now. Of course he used some choice words. He said, I'm sick and tired of all y'all babyfied crying. He said, I'm tired of y'all screwing over me. And he rolled this thing in a thing that looked like a bomb. And he ran out the door. Everybody cleaned out the control room. Everybody ran out. And still today guys tell me that story.
Did he do things like that when y'all were boys?
No, we
Y'all didn't have time for that.
didn't have time for that.
He probably got his tail whipped.
Yeah.
Mama would have whipped him, huh?
You better.
She had that strap.
I was gonna ask you.
No, that's right.
I was gonna ask you
over
that
there.
razor strap. Did she
Oh,
still
Lord,
had that when y'all were boys, huh?
She used that on them and on us.
Still passed down the line.
That razor strap, that came from Mr. Jimmy?
No, that's probably before I had that for a straight razor. I
Straight
went
razor.
down and sharpened his razor on it.
Yeah. Y'all used to get haircuts by Mr. Jimmy also?
No, we used to get our haircut. I don't remember. I went to Lutcher for a while to get a haircut. But a haircut in those days was 25 cents. And then a lot of people used to cut their own hair, you know.
Yeah.
People at Belmont, they had a barber shop at, well, that old man, he came there later on, and we were grown up when he came there. That barber in Belmont. But it was all good time. But we know what it is to come up from nothing.
Mhm.
And what y'all both have accomplished, all of
Eat a
y'all.
banana peanut butter sandwich for lunch.
Yeah, we
Didn't
learned.
have no hot lunch in schools in those days.
You brought your
Yeah.
lunch.
I remember Mama serving us a bowl of a bowl of coffee milk in the morning and breaking crackers in it.
Right.
And
My
that was our
favorite breakfast.
That was on breakfast.
My favorite
That was
breakfast.
our breakfast.
Yep. I didn't like cereal milk. I wanted my coffee milk and crackers.
And I remember Papa had us one day
And syrup.
and Mama had cooked some beans, but he had caught a fish eel. And she had fried that fish eel. And I remember Mama putting that on the table and we all saying, what's that? We not gonna eat that. And Mama said, that's fish. Eat that, that's good. And we all ate that and when we finished she told us it was fish eel.
Mm-hmm. She
I
did that to us too. I remember that too.
Well, fish was not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
And
Dad
Mama
started
ain't
doing it
eating
in the
that,
house.
Mama eating her
Daddy did the
sadron.
same thing to us.
Shots wrong.
Yeah, Mama.
Yeah,
Mama
sadron.
love her sadron.
Yeah, Mama
You don't
used to
see
take
kids
that.
going out in the field looking for shots wrong.
I still will cut me one down and I'll eat it with my
Every year.
vinegar.
I eat one every year.
For my mom.
Put your salt. Like
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And
like celery.
baked sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
We all had sweet potatoes in the barn under the haystack, you know, to keep them from freezing. You know,
And we all ate that and when we finished she told us it was fish eel.
Mm-hmm. She did
Yeah,
that to us too. I remember that too.
well, fish was not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
And
Dad
Mama
started
ain't
doing it
eating
in the
that,
house.
Mama eating her
Daddy did the
sadron.
same thing to us.
Them shots wrong.
Yeah, Mama.
Yeah,
Mama
sadron.
love her sadron.
Yeah, Mama
You don't
used to
see
take
kids
that.
going out in the field looking for shots wrong.
I still will cut me one down and I'll eat it with my
Every year.
vinegar.
I eat one every year.
For my mom.
Put your salt. Like
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And
like celery.
baked sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
We all had sweet potatoes in the barn under the haystack, you know, to keep them from freezing in those days. And you had plenty of fresh milk, fresh eggs, kill a chicken
Mhm.
on the
She used
weekend,
to kill them chicken.
lock them up for a week or so, feed them, and then
Been killing.
She'd do that for Sunday dinner.
it's always different. It tastes different than what we buy now in the store. I
Yeah.
tell you that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the same. Flavor's not there. Yeah, you have the good pieces to eat on Sunday, then you get the back and the bony pieces for
Stews and stuff.
But we ate a lot of, like on Fridays, I remember, though, of course, you remember that too, because you couldn't eat meat on Wednesdays and Fridays. You'd eat tomatoes with the boiled eggs in there. That's
Yeah.
gravy.
And Daddy's famous potato stew that we found out he didn't like after
Yeah.
all the years. Mama used to have, every Friday had potato stew.
I know that is.
Oh, we
Oh,
didn't know
yeah.
that either until
Yeah,
after
like
20 years. He
Potato
told us
stew
that,
and,
you don't know how much I hate potato stew.
You probably ate a lot of that in the service.
Yeah, that's why, that's just
Not
why.
a stew in the service.
We were all grown when he finally said, I don't like potato stew. We were like, oh.
I never knew.
Yeah, and
Oh,
he ate
yeah.
it every Friday.
Friday, every Friday, famous.
River shrimp and
around.
potato stew?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes she wouldn't have that river shrimp though. They had
No.
just potato
Just
stew.
potato stew. Sometimes she put some weenies in it.
Not on Friday.
Not on Friday,
No,
right?
not on Friday, no.
You know, when you were there when Daddy and Mama initially lived with Mama and Papa, you'd go down and you'd see them you were already married.
Yeah.
When they first got married, they were living a little while with
Yeah.
Mama and Papa.
No, very seldom. Well, I went there for a while. I used to stop there because when I first started teaching, I was teaching lunch in the morning, go to Roussel in the evening.
So you'd stop on the way.
Yeah. But we were 4 boys there, and we slept there. They had a sofa there and they had a bed in that room. That's where we slept.
You know, and this was a lot later too, but I could remember all of us used to go play bingo, poker keno, looked like almost every day. We used to say the rosary and then play bingo.
Yeah.
Y'all used to do that too?
They had that in Belmont. That was during the war. They had all that rotary thing during the war.
So it just continued after. Mama kept.
Yeah, they kept that. They had that in Belmont, the rosary march, they used to call that.
That's how they
All
got
those-
started.
A lot of those ladies in Belmont.
Mhm.
And that rotary, that's still going on in some places, some communities,
Yeah, right.
Garyville and Glass. Just like you had Renew, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Right.
people used to have those little small groups,
Mhm.
meet at their house and discuss things.
Mhm.
I think that was just a carry over what they were doing in those other days. Yeah, well, when y'all get it all together, get a copy out, Wendy.
After this interview was done, my dad and I used to get together every Wednesday. We'd run around Hester, and then we'd have lunch. So I learned a lot about the different lands, the 3 pieces of property the Roussel brothers owned. It was being formed by sugarcane farmers. Right now we're in December of 2020, and I made a YouTube video of the DVD interview of my dad, Roland Roussel, conducted in September 1998. In late 2003, I began formulating an idea of developing the Hester property into a family subdivision with my dad. At that time, Karen and I had decided we were going to move from Anderville back to St. James Parish. So every meeting, trip, and phone discussion, my dad was at my side. We were together, and he and I planned how to go about trying to get this completed. In early 2004, my dad and I began meeting with all family members to present the concept. And we also started getting development cost estimates to complete and gain approval within St. James Parish. My concept was that each of the 24 grandkids would get 1 lot at a nominal fee, and then reestablish a price for extended family and eventually maybe even public. And even though it was a family subdivision, we would bill it to public specification. And that was key. We had to bill it to public specification. Once we had 16 commitments, we formed Hester Heights Development, LLC, and began construction of Richard's Hester Heights family subdivision in late 2004. And we completed it with the final approval in 2005. Now, we did the land clearing on the property. The Teeka group put in the water and gas utilities, and then R.J. Daigle actually did the road for us. Now, Denise Road was named after my grandmother, Denise, and the subdivision was named after my grandfather, Richard. The land was being rented to sugarcane farmers, and there were approximately 6 acres in trees, and the 15 acres associated with 15-1. When clearing this area, we uncovered 2 oil wells. One had a 10-foot concrete cellar with a 26-inch pipe cap with a 15-inch cap in the center of it. And this was 10 feet underground, and it was 10 feet square. We buried the surface concrete around the well and covered the well. And I decided we would not build on this lot, and I bought it, and that's where I planted my pecan trees that are there now. Then in about 2013, 2014, we finally started to have some inquiries about the Hester property. And up until this time, we'd had very little interest in any expansion. But my brother Sidney, his 2 sons Matthew and Tip, were interested in building. So Sidney and I teamed up. We became the team because my dad had passed away in 2008. And Sidney and I started working on the expansion of Richard's Hester Heights, Phase 2 and 3, and formulating and designing the concept of Moore and Patel Park for Phase 4. Now, we still had to fulfill the commitment for the 24 grandkids and see what other interests we might have. Also, the parish subdivision requirements and ordinance had changed, and the remaining area under the 4 strips owned by the family would have to be transferred into Hester Heights Development LLC. When we done Phase 1, we had only transferred the land associated with the Phase 1 area, that 15 acres. The remaining 40 acres was still divided into the 4 strips. So it would require beginning all the family meetings again to present the development proposal one more time. Once we received all the family approvals and legal paperwork, EES Engineering and Riverland Surveying created the plans, including drainage study, and the Hester Heights Development LLC handled the construction, with R.J. Daigle installing the road, while Energy, RTC, and AT&T installed all underground utilities for these 2 phases. Phase 2 was developed into 16 lots, and Phase 3 was developed into 12 lots, with all underground utilities, including the sewer infrastructure, with completion and final approval in 2015. Putting in the sewer infrastructure was a requirement placed on us by the parish, since the ordinance for subdivisions had changed for public subdivision. Since the parish doesn't have parish-wide sewer, the individual homeowners will still going to have to put in the individual modads for each home site. But the infrastructure to connect to a parish-wide sewer are there. Now, once we dedicated all the road and the drainage and the utilities to the parish, Hester Heights became a public subdivision because the parish accepted it, and then the road name was changed to Denise Street versus Denise Road. But Phase 1, 2, and 3 is Denise Street, a public subdivision. We also had begun work on Roussel Farms and Motel Park. That was the 13 acres that was Phase 4. The elevation was such that it was too low to really expand. We would have had to bring in a lot of dirt. So we ended up making that a 13-acre park. Sidney designed the layout to include the cypress barn, packing shed around the dock, the 4-H animal barn for pigs, lamb, chicken, rabbits, and whatever else the families may want at some time, with buildings designed to resemble old structures, such as the old canning center on Lutcher Schoolyard for the pig barn, Roussel's brother's store, then the Rockin' 88 bar. When we were kids, we used to go fishing. My grandpa would take us to go fishing at the pond across from Rockin' 88, a bar that was on the river road. So we now have a pond across from Rockin' 88. The schoolhouse chapel, the old garage, blacksmith shop, and post office and barber shop, all old-time buildings where the poultry and rabbits are. There's another equipment barn near a small garden area, and we have grounds for t-ball or soccer field eventually that the children may want to play on. We dug a 3-acre pond, using the dirt to raise all elevations on lots phase 2 and 3 to a 9-foot elevation. That was key because in Hester at 3125, the elevation of that road is 7.5 feet. So we wanted to get to a 9-foot elevation on phase 2 and 3. So once you put in a house pad, you would be almost 2.5 feet higher than Hester Street or Hester Road. I mean Highway 3125. Now we also raised the home sites on the Roussel farms in the park area to a 7-foot elevation. We decided that we were going to put in some cottage-style houses on 5 lots within the park, and we called that Roussel Farms Family Subdivision. Again, all construction was self-funded. Now there was lots of donated labor and time by many cousins, friends, and family members. There was a small core construction crew that deserved special thanks for all their time and effort in helping Sydney and I. I mean, we could not have done it without this small crew to make the park area a vision that Sydney and I had, come to a reality. The special thanks would be to Matthew Roussel, Richie Lear, Ricky Guidry, Tyler Garbois, and at times when there was higher work to be done, Sydney would always get my son-in-law Bill Forchetti to help, and many others who lent a hand from time to time. And it's a special thank you to all. And we also, at that time, formulated and established the Richards Hester Heights Homeowners Association, L3C, which all the homeowners within phase 1, 2, and 3 at Roussel Farms are members. The park is also there for the Roussel family members, along with the members of the Homeowners Association. In 2016, the memorial granite benches to honor and thank our grandparents and parents was commissioned by me, and I had it built by Hope Haven, but we actually have 2 of these benches. One's in the Cypress Barn and the other's in the packing shed by the dock. Again, we could not have done this if it would not have been hit for our grandparents, Richard and Denise Roussel Sr., born Patel, and our parents and their spouses, because they owned the land, and now we've turned it into this Richards Hester Heights subdivision and Roussel's Farm subdivision and Moore and Patel Park to try and leave a legacy. In 2018 was when we did the Roussel Farm, the family subdivision. Now formally that was phase 4 initially, but that was approximately 13 acres that developed into 7 lots. Lots 1 to 5 were for family Acadian style housing, and lots 6 and 7 were designated agriculture and developed into the Moore and Patel Park and transferred into the Homeowners Association. So the subdivision is designated family with the limestone road, and it's named Denise Road since it's a family subdivision, whereas phase 1, 2, and 3 is Denise Street. During this time, I thought of my dad often as we continued to develop more projects, knowing how proud he and my mom would be. Now, Sydney and I had a lot of support from our brothers and sisters. They were always there when we needed some assistance from the beginning. And thanks to Gwen, Suzanne, Doyle, and Mike, and a special thanks especially to Sydney, who never ran out of ideas. But we run out of money before he ran out of ideas. I'm more fortunate and proud to make Hester my home. And I know my dad, my mom, my grandparents, Mo and Patel, and all the brothers and sisters, my uncles and aunts, Uncle June, Uncle Niece, Uncle Garland, who was my parent, and my dad would be very proud of what we've built here in Hester. Karen and I also celebrated our 51st wedding anniversary here with our family back in 2014. And now it's 2020 and we're up to 57 years. But I would have to thank my family, because I did put in a lot of time doing this, but I appreciate it, and I think they all love being here in Hester as well. It was a nice decision for us to move here, and it is our home.